So this video is going to be for people who are wanting to build out just a business and understand the key metrics that help a business grow and scale. And one thing that I realized was that numbers are the foundation of a successful business. And I used to be someone who would not look at numbers, and I'd be more emotionally driven or just not like the idea of math until it came to the math that made money. So that is why I have put this together. This is more so just like a training and just something that I wish I had earlier to be able to understand how businesses move and how understanding different metrics, specifically in businesses that have like a call funnel. So a funnel is a process that people go through in order to become a client, where they go from unaware and maybe they see an ad through to potentially like a video or a training where they then opt in and then book a call. And then from there, they'll hop on a sales call and determine if the product or service is the right fit for them and become a client. So that's what I'm talking about with the numbers here. And the reason why is because we're building out a sales and marketing agency and we're working with a company to help them scale. So what I realized was how crucial numbers are. And I really learnt this through one of my mentors, Simon, who looked at everything through numbers. I'd come with him for questions around what we should do in this instance. Say, for example, we're running Facebook ads and we're not getting people opting in. Well, he wouldn't just say, let's try this. He would say, all right, let's bring up the numbers and see what the data says. And this is something that I've really realized is that you can't change what you don't track. So you have to be tracking everything. And this is something that I wasn't doing before because I thought that, the numbers are the numbers, whether I know them or not. But that's not true. You have to be able to know what the numbers are. So I wanted to go into this here. This is a little sheet that I put together. And if you're in the marketing space, you would understand these little names here and what they are. So we've got the spend, and down here is the different channels. So the different channels are the different ways that people can interact with your business and essentially inquire. So for the company that I'm working with and is our client, we have 4 lead sources and different channels. Meta is Facebook, and then website, LinkedIn, and then this is a franchising website. So what we can do here is understand the money and how the money is moving through the business, which allows us to predictably predict what we need to do or what needs to be fixed, and essentially to release any of the pressure within the funnel. So if you just look at the whole funnel from someone being unaware to seeing an ad to becoming a client, there is a funnel and you can see it as water flowing through the funnel. Well, there would be different spots in that funnel where there's tension and kinks that are stopping the flow through of the client moving through that business. So having the data really allows you to understand what to do with that, with a certain situation. So these are some of the key metrics that you want to look at. You want to look at the spend, so how much you're spending on ads, how many leads you got, so how many people inquired, and then the cost per lead. So the cost per lead is, let's just play this out here. So let's go $1,000 in spend. So you spend $1,000 to, let's put that on Meta because that's more likely. $1,000 on Meta, and you get, let's go 50 leads. So that would then determine that the cost per lead is $20. So this is really good to understand. And then the bookings is how many people from these 50 leads booked. So say, for example, let's say 10 booked, right? Now we can see how many people are booked, and our cost per booked call, that's what this CPBC stands for, is $100. So it costs us $100 to get a call booked into the calendar. Now, that's just the booked. That doesn't mean that the call has been taken and they actually showed up. So then you can go across and say, okay, how many people of those 10 showed up? And let's say, let's just go easy, 5 people showed up. For a cost per call taken, it costs us $200. Out of those 5 people, how many people did we sell? How many people came through and actually purchased the product or service? Then we can go, let's just go 3. That's pretty good. And this then allows us to see that our cost per acquisition is $333. So it costs us $333 to be able to acquire a client, right? So then we can see, all right, how much of these 3 people did we make for this? So say we're selling something for $10,000, a package for $10,000. Then you can say, okay, so we collected $10,000 and our ROAS, which means return on ad spend, is 10, which means we 10 times the amount of money that we put in. So you can see here how this allows it to be so predictable, because you can say, all right, if I put $1,000 in and make $10,000, that's a cash cow, right? And it becomes predictable if you consistently do this, and you can see what you can improve to be able to get more out of this, right? If we can increase the amount of calls that were taken by increasing the show rate and people actually showing up to the call from 6 to, let's go to 8, and then 5 people actually closed from that, then we can say, all right, we collected $50,000, which then tells us that we're at 50 times the amount of money that we put in, which is crazy. But this is just for the sake of the example. So you can see this here. So this allows you to see how much it costs you to acquire a client. And this is what I wish I had earlier. And I was always someone who would just neglect the numbers because I thought they are just what they are. But it allows us to have more clarity around what we can shift. So this is really good. And I want to break this down here. I haven't put it together in a spreadsheet yet. And by the way, if anyone wants that spreadsheet where they actually have this and it's all mathed out, where you can determine how much you need to spend to be able to acquire a client and the bookings and all this, you can have this. If someone comments, I can put it together like an actual templated one and you can use it. So one thing that I've also learned is financial modeling. And this is where you need to be able to determine what our stats are and understand what our stats are so that we can accurately predict the goals that we're wanting to achieve. So this is something that I've only just recently learned, but it makes so much sense. So you have to understand all of the percentages through the pipeline, through that flow. We have to understand what they all look like, the main ones, so that we can determine how much we need to spend and how many people we need to close in order to achieve a certain goal. So let's just put this out here. So say, for example, we wanted to hit $100,000 per month. Well, in order to hit $100,000, we have to understand how many people we have to sell. So you would go 100,000 divided by, I don't think there's a divide symbol on the keyboard. Let's just do this. Divided by whatever the price of the product or service that you're selling is. So let's just go, for the sake of the example, 10,000. So 10,000 is how much I sell the product for, which means we would have to make 10 sales per month, right? So we'd have to make 10 sales per month. Now we have to understand how we make 10 sales per month. So we have to go a step back and see how many people do we have to hop on a call with in order to be able to close, which means to sell 10 people. So how you do this is you look at your close percentage and the percentage of people that close out of how many calls. So let's say, for example, the close percentage, and you have to know this beforehand, is 30%. So close percentage equals 30%, right? So we have to then figure out how many people have to hop on a call in order to be able to get the 30%, to get the 10 sales. So what we would do here is we would go 10 divided by 0.30 equals 33.3. Oh, why is this done? So 10 divided by 0.30 equals 34, because you can't have half a person on the call. So you'd have to take 34 calls in order to be able to close 10 people, right? Now, that's the calls taken. So we have to go back a step beforehand. Let's do this. Let's close percentage. All right, that looks better. So we do that, 34. So we have to go a step back and figure out how many people we actually need to show up to the call in order to be able to determine how many people, we have to understand what our show rate is in order to, we have to understand how many calls have to be in the calendar and how many people show up to that call to be able to know how many people we're going to have to get 34 calls taken, right? So this is where we work out the show rate. And the show rate, let's just say, for example, let's do this, show percentage. The show percentage, meaning the amount of people that actually show up to the calls out of the amount of people that were booked in the calendar, is 40%, right? Then we can go, okay, 34 divided by, that's my divide symbol by the way, 0.40 equals 85. So we need 85 people in the calendar in order to be able to get 40% of them to show up, which means that we can take 34 calls, and with our statistics of how many people we close, we can make 10 sales out of those closes because our close rate is 30%, right? So I think I'm doing this right here. Now, in order to understand how much it's going to cost to get 85 people into the call, that's when we can look at something like this where it says cost per booked call. So in this case, it's $100 per booked call. So understanding this beforehand is key. So then you go booked call cost, and the booked call cost equals $100. Let's just go with that example. So it costs us $100 to book a call. We know that from previous data, and this is why you need to track beforehand. So it's going to cost us $8,500 because let's just do it so we can keep consistent here. Booked call cost. So then we're going to go 100 times 85 equals $8,500. So this then allows us to see with our statistics that if we put $8,500 into Meta and into Facebook with other stats lining up as well, but these are the main ones, then that's going to get us 85 calls. And out of those 85 calls, 40% of them are going to show, which means that there'll be 34 calls taken. And then with that, the 34 calls taken, 30% of these people are going to actually turn into clients, which means that we will get 10 sales. Yeah, which means that we will get 10 sales to be able to make at $10,000 each, to be able to make the $100,000 per month. So this is like a forecast to be able to see how much you need to spend in order to make a certain amount of money. And then you can, create math and understand, all right, what is predictably going to make sense so that we can spend this amount of money to acquire this amount of people. And this is how you start to predict business and to scale. So this is what I've learned so far. I'm sure there's so much more to this, and I might have even got it slightly off, but it's helped me so far be able to predictably understand numbers and understand what needs to be fine-tuned so that I can shift things and move forward. So just a little side note, we actually got an 8x return on ad spend with our last ads that we've ran. So we put in, let's just say for the example, we put in $100 and we got $800 out. It was far more than that, but we put in a certain amount of money and we got 8 times that amount of money out on the back end, which is a crazy ROI. So that's when you can become predictable and understand what you need to do in order to move the needle forward. So if you're wanting this worksheet, if I just bring it back up, if you're wanting this worksheet, just let me know and I can put a templated one together. This is the one that I'm actually using. So I can put a templated one together and yeah, let me know.